I met with Mr. Donnelly at his office, which is in this downtown Manhattan building. I asked him, "What is a typical day like for you?"
A typical day for me is I'm here from 9 to 7, and then probably 2 nights out of 5 I go out to see bands, or actually 2 nights out of 4, because I make a point of never going out on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday night unless it's for my own personal enjoyment. Um, so uh, so it's a they're long days.
I asked him, "Do you ever have to go to court?"
Never.
Never.
No. I mean, the only time I mean, occasionally what'll happen is when we can't settle a matter, um, uh, you know, I will bring in litigators, and I will then be on the team of people who are litigating the matter as the music law specialist, but that will only require me to be in court very rarely.
Does your job involve a lot of travel?
Mostly just New York and LA. I mean, I do, I'm involved in some committees involving music law that take me down to Washington, D.C., but mostly it's New York and LA.
I was interested to hear what kind of work Mr. Donnelly does in Washington, and he told me this story about how he helped to repeal a pro record company anti artist works for hire bill.
Well, the work for hire bill is this is a fairly complicated. I'll try to make it as uncomplicated as possible. The uh, the copyright law, which was enacted in 1976, the revisions of the copyright law specified what could be a work for hire and what couldn't be a work for hire. And one of the things that wasn't on the list was recordings. So it has been our position, we who represent artist rights, that recordings cannot be a work for hire, which means that starting in the year 2013, okay, which is 35 years after the 76 Act went into effect in 1978, that any recordings made from 78 on forward to the present will start reverting after every 35-year term to the artist who recorded them. So in the year 2013, the albums that were released in the year 1978 will start reverting back in 19 the albums that were released in 1979 will start coming back in 2014, and so on. Okay, record companies have always taken a different point of view. They say, oh no, that isn't how we read the copyright law. And what's more, even if you're right in your reading, we feel that there's language in the recording agreements that give us the rights in perpetuity forever to those recordings. We have taken the position that no, the rights granted under the Copyright Act are inalienable. You can't assign them away. So we know we're right. In 2013, we'll see. When the first test case comes, we'll see who's right. In 1999, in the middle of the night, the record company's lobbyists, which is called the RIAA, had slipped into a few thousand-page bill on satellite transmissions, having nothing to do with the copyright. What they called a minor technical correction of the Copyright Act. Now, the minor technical correction was to add in recordings into the definition of what could be a work for hire, which of course completely negates this reversion right that artists would otherwise have. And unfortunately, the people who represent artists on the Hill were asleep at the switch. The thing got passed. Clinton was in his last term, last year of his last term, who's generally an artist-friendly president, went ahead and signed the bill because we were all asleep, when he did, and then only after it became a law did we realize what an incredible screw-up had happened. So we then started to go down to Washington to lobby to turn this around and to have this repealed, this amendment repealed, which is twice as hard as getting it passed in the first place. But we organized in a way that artists had never organized before, and we got a lot of people, a lot of artists to come down and help us. Sheryl Crow, Mary Chapin Carpenter, Ronnie Spector, my client, and it was it was a tough fight because we were able to get the Democrats on our side, but we couldn't win over the Republicans until we were able to convince Sonny Bono's wife, Mary Bono, who sits in his seat for as a representative from California. We sat her down one day and we said, you know, hey, listen, you realize you voted for this thing. You realize what this does to your future and your kids' future. And she had no idea. And when we made her understand, she then convinced a lot of her Republican colleagues, and we were able to get it repealed. So it was probably the first major victory in Washington that artists have ever had.